Sorry, I'm babysitting a dog, so she's loud. Abby. Abby.
All right. Well, I know.
Do we know if other Daves are coming?
Yeah, Dave Nixon said he was coming. David Candela, I'm not positive. I haven't heard either way. Well,
I thought
he was
Candela.
coming, but I don't know.
Do you want me to text Dave?
Sure. But I mean, we do also have quorum. We can get started.
Okay, you got the speech?
Can I just ask a question before we officially kick off? Whatever happened with them? I thought I was going to go onto the master plan.
We're working on getting you back approved.
Approved.
We don't have our seat yet. So.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. The kids want me to show you the dog. Here. This is Abby. She's 6.5 pounds, and this is who we're babysitting at the moment. So
Nice.
Sorry if you hear her.
Yep.
If my pandemic puppy comes through, I'll show her.
Oh, we want to get a dog now, and my daughter won't let us because it's too much responsibility.
Yeah, no, we did it. My wife's afraid of dogs. She finally broke down, so now we're in. It's probably been 2 months, I think, we've had the dog now. So it's a whole new world. The poor cat is traumatized, but otherwise, everyone else is good.
How's the
All right. We're going live on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, you're good.
All right. So we'll call the Recreation Commission meeting to order at 6:05 p.m. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing a strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Recreation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information on the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the Town of Southborough's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or participate in the meeting may do so in the following manner by finding the meeting information on our town website. No in-person attendance of members of the public may be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite our best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive recordings of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All right. So the first thing just to move through is we have meeting minutes that I sent around to you guys. Did you get a chance to read those? From July 6th?
I don't have any comments.
I wasn't at the last meeting, so I don't know if we can vote on them or not without another member.
No, you actually can.
Oh.
Yep, you're allowed to.
I have no comments.
Okay. So want to make a motion?
So I make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I second.
All right. And then so we need a roll call vote. So Hanson, yes.
Lavelle, yes.
Dumont, yes.
Awesome. Okay. So then do we want to just go into general, or actually Tim, whatever order you want to go in is fine.
Yeah, so I have Jason Malinowski in the waiting room. So if we could move up item 7 about the South Union School Building. Him and I went back and forth, and he offered to be here to kind of give a little more insight on it. So I'm going to promote him to a panelist so he can come in.
Awesome.
Jen, one administrative question.
Yep.
Do you want me to take minutes?
If you want to, if not, I can do it. Doesn't matter.
I don't care. I just know that you've been doing it, carrying the weight.
You know what? Yes, if you want to, that's great.
So when I'm looking over here, it's just because I'm typing.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Tim. How are you? Hi, everyone.
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for being here.
No problem. So do you want me to just jump right into the email that I had sent you and Jen?
Absolutely, that would be perfect.
So as all of you know, because I know some of you have attended our capital planning committee meetings, we've been looking at all the facilities in town. That includes buildings, land, fields, anything town owns. We've been looking at it to create a longer term 10-year capital plan. And we've had extensive conversations specific to South Union School and whether that should be part of the town's facility inventory moving forward. To be very clear, we're just discussing at this point. And we're trying to gauge feedback from a variety of parties, and I'll walk through that, but obviously recreation is a huge component of that, given that you occupy a good portion of the building. And ultimately, if the town were to choose to go another direction with the building and not be the owner of it, it not only would require a vote of the Board of Selectmen, it would be, that vote only puts it on a town meeting agenda, at which time town meeting would ultimately make the decision. So what we're trying to do is do all the homework in advance to determine whether this is even a viable path forward. So where we have gone to date is we've heard from Tim. Tim's attended a few of our meetings at this point, talked about some longer term plans, and we are in very, very preliminary conversations with the school department of what the future looks like for the schools. We've tried to be very, very careful and considerate of obviously all the decisions they've had to make leading to last night's decision. So we have not had engaged fully with them. But what we're really looking for your feedback on is if the Board of Selectmen ultimately were to pursue this and put it on a town meeting warrant to dispose of the property, one, what is the commission and department's appetite to operate out of temporary space? And I'll define temporary space in a couple minutes, but also, you know, what are you looking for longer term, right? Because the reason to do this would be really to set every department up, including recreation, for, you know, long-term benefit in terms of actually putting everyone in a space that actually fits your needs, right? If you kind of look at what we did as a town for police and fire a couple years ago, right? We're now trying to do that for everyone in all the other departments. So in terms of temporary space, and the reason we're kind of exploring this without a full 10-year plan yet is we need to start to get some balls rolling, right? I'm also going to candidly need cash to offset some of these expenses, right? So this is clearly probably the property in town that would yield the largest amount of money, again, still to be validated, and allow us to fund capital projects that would further advance the longer term plan. Because we don't have that permanent plan, the reason I want to define temporary space for you is we've talked about a variety of spaces, maybe talking with the schools, you know, for where we co-locate, you know, short-term or longer term, but it also may be vacant office property, right? And rent it for a certain period of time with a longer term vision in mind. I don't foresee there being additional space opening up in other town-owned facilities that aren't schools, just based on what we've heard to date. You'd have to really have a complete paramount shift in how the town does it operates, you know, for that to be a reality, i.e. not everyone in the office every day once we get beyond the pandemic. So we would commit, you know, to finding a suitable temporary space that would be equal to the size that you know, Tim and Alex and the rest of the department use currently on a short-term basis. Obviously advance and have those conversations, and with the goal of obviously having all stakeholders at the table for a longer-term conversation if this were to even move forward. The other thing I should mention is South Union has significant capital needs over the next 5 years, which is why it raised to our radar is that money well spent? And finally, I'll leave you with the overall operating expenses for that building on a yearly basis are just north of $37,000 on top of the anticipated capital. So could we be deploying a lesser amount for, you know, this space longer term, but also helping to advance the vision of both obviously your department. We're also speaking with youth and family, given that they, you know, are in the same building as you. We've also reached out to historical, given that this building is on the historic registry, i.e. someone can't just come tear it down. So with that, I'll pause and open it up for questions or comments.
So I'll jump in. I'll just echo that. So that was going to be one of my first questions because we know it's historical. So I guess how does that affect do you think it's going to have a positive and negative on this whole, I guess, sale potential? I'm just curious. That's more of a curiosity question.
There would just be restrictions on who, if it were to go a sale route, it would impact the buyer, what they can and can't do with the building.
Yeah, I had the opportunity, and that was exactly my question too. I was part of the temporary committee when they were selling the Fayetteville Hall there, and what we did was put together a proposal of what we thought was important to be considered by people making, putting forward offers. They didn't have to be adhered to. At the end of the day, the Board of Selectmen could have accepted any offer that I believe they chose to. So it wasn't like a binding set of restrictions, but more so key considerations that we would like the buyer to take into consideration. And I would say that the Board of Selectmen were very good about, really trying to adhere to those. So I assume it would be a similar process.
Yeah, ultimately be up to them how they decide to advance it.
Would the sale include, Jason, the potential sale include the building, the land itself, the parking lot, I think there's a bit of a play area. Is it all encompassing?
That's at least what we're currently exploring. It obviously, I think with any of these, what capital has discussed is, every opportunity, very similar to the golf course transaction with St. Mark's, creates a unique opportunity to be beyond just a straight sale, right? And I think that's really ultimately what BOS is going to have to decide if they're on board with this approach of what do they want to do with it and what's their strategy. And Tim, you may want to chime in because I know I specifically already got a question about the playground. So if, the land were to go all encompassing in Don's example, what are your thoughts around the playground, especially given it's not that old?
Yeah, so me and Jason had a little back and forth on this. So like he just said, the playground's not that old. And just within the year I've been here, some of the schools have reached out because their playgrounds are getting to the point where it's probably going to be a conversation coming up relatively soon about having to be replaced. Just, we're nearing that safety conversation on some of the stuff. So within the next, not like this coming, if they wanted to replace it, they could, but it's got a few years left in it. So, potentially if this is a somewhat soon sale of, 2 or 3 years down the road, just because that playground is not utilized that heavily as other ones in town, I think that equipment can easily be repurposed around town, which I think could help the schools in that manner. We just had the inspection, less than a year ago. It passed completely fine. There was no concerns of the equipment itself. So I think that's an option just with that, so we don't lose that piece of it.
I think the one only other concern, like that playground was also built because it's one of the only places you can go during school hours. So any younger kids are not in school or anyone homeschooled, like it's really the only playground they have access to. So I know that was one of the big reasons why it was built there, but so we just want to take that into consideration as well.
Well, just to clarify though, on that side of town, right? Because
Correct.
there's Fayetteville, but on the south side of town.
Yep.
Right, and the new one at Town Hall too, right? Because that one on a neutral turf. So Tim, the only other question, so it would seem to me, you need a couple of offices, you'd like to have a conference room, that all seems to be straightforward. I'm sure someone on Jason's team will do the math and figure out, okay, at X square footage in town, there's plenty of office space. We know there are, we drive by the empty buildings, right? So someone can do the math on how do you $37,000 to maintain of operating expense for the facility that converts into, I don't know, maybe some number less of office space. If we put aside office space for a second, which is probably more likely than not fungible, is there anything else in the building that's utilized that would need to be, we talked about the playground on the outside, but is there, I know there's like a gym upstairs or something. Is there anything else that we'd have to think about replacing besides office space?
Replacing as in like a temporary space?
Yeah, basically.
Like an equivalent?
Yeah, an equivalent. You would need something so you have stock, right? You have inventory that you use, right? And so you take this building offline because theoretically you could take the building offline tomorrow and save $37,000 a year, right? And then you replace that with, replacement space, right? And I'm sure someone may have already penciled this out, Jason, and they figured out that, for $7.5 a square foot, they can get Class B office space on Route 9, central in town, blah, 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 blah. But you may not be able to replace everything that's in that building.
Yeah,
Right.
so that would be my only concern and request if we were to go into a temporary space, just because this board knows that within the last year, we've filled the walls from when we've been able to, obviously, in regular times. That building's been used from 8 in the morning when we get there until 8 at night, pretty much 5 days a week, sometimes on the weekend. So, office space is office space. We don't need a lot of, we like to be comfortable, and that's just about it. But we do have a conference room there that we do trainings in from programming wise. We have that gym upstairs that we do a lot of programming in, all throughout the day, that youth and family also utilizes very heavily. We just invested a good amount in that side room to make it a training room. Same with the conference room, investing the money in that. And then we do have the art studio downstairs that when we are in the height of school again, when everything goes back to the way it was, that is used both on the weekends and during the week. So my biggest concern and my only ask would be that whatever temporary space we end up in, if that's the route that this goes, that we end up in an area that is compatible, that mimics what we have now, that's relative to the space now. Because if we don't, we'll be taking a couple steps backwards in kind of the progress of programming and offerings that we made. So that would be
that
really my only concern.
That should be factored in. I mean, if there's a, and I know the way the P&L and the accounting works in town is challenging, but you've got 37,000 outflow for the building, but you do have an inflow that's coming in as a result of utilizing the space that isn't necessarily being displayed because of how we do all of the numbers. Let's say, it's not your traditional, you know what I mean, Jason. Town accounting is a little bit different.
It's nothing like GAAP.
So just to keep in mind that it's not just it's quote unquote, it's free space. So the margin on that utilization is very high, and so it's something to factor in as the math comes together.
Yeah, and I think that will factor into timing, right? So town meeting may say go for it or not go for it. Let's just say they go for it, right? It doesn't mean you have to execute on it in a certain period of time, right? Mm-hmm. So you may time it such that maybe you're in temporary space for X number of months, right? And we do some calculations of, is that even lost revenue? I mean, right, like the next year is obviously going to be problem for a lot of reasons, right? Until we can get back to some, right? So if we're looking beyond next year, right, like what does that mean? I think that these are the things we need to know, right? So that we can think through it. And I think my goal, right, is i.e. early outreach, right? And I know like youth and family already has indicated, obviously they need confidential space, right? Because of the work that they do, right? That's closed offices, but training rooms, we have other training rooms in town, right? Like obviously we built a massive one at the public safety building, but obviously that building's offline right now because of what we're going through. But ultimately, right, Porterville Hall will come back online, Townhouse will come back online. So I think we'll have to be creative. Ultimately, right, we all know, right, to get probably where everyone wants to go longer term, everyone will have to sacrifice short term. It's just minimizing what that short term is.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, keep in mind, and I know I probably don't have to say this, but it's not just the short-term impact to revenues, the short-term impact to the community not having these programs running. I think I just want to keep that in mind when we're talking about timeframes, that it shouldn't be looked at just at a financial standpoint. It's also, people want these programs more than ever. People are going to need these programs to the extent that they can be run. Yeah.
And that's what we have to understand is what programs could be moved, right? Mm-hmm. And what can't be moved.
Yeah. Another thing too, I'm sure you probably talked to John about it, but the bottom floor too is a massive storage space for the town, just with supplies, not so much with our building, but around with other buildings in town, but also our equipment. Our storage room down there is just about the size of our office, and it's packed wall to wall to the ceiling. So I think that'll be a big, I think that would be one of the bigger challenges, not to move, 3 people, but, a couple $1,000s worth of balls and goals and stuff like that. So I think that's part of one of those, I think, unseen things there, of what's really living in the basement. So.
My only last question, and because it's town space, I'm not sure if this is even doable, but one of the long-term goals we need to get back to our capital planning too, I recognize, but one of the longer-term goals has always been more of a rec facility, for years, right? It's been discussed. Is there a way to connect some of the profit made on the building to some of the recreation capital goals?
So I would say it's probably broader than that. So there's been extensive conversation that we've already had about a concept of a community center.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, Council on Aging is looking for significant amount of money to redo Corderville Hall. Our committee hasn't taken a position yet on that because we want to think more broadly of, is there a way to combine that request with obviously what you're looking for in terms of longer term recreation space, especially indoors, because that was the first thing Tim told us, is you obviously feel comfortable with where you're going with all the capital that's been spent on all these outside fields right now. How do we, right? So, there have been, this is the worst kept secret in town, right? Is if we were to consolidate schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what space opens up, right? And who, like that is going to be an outcome of our plan. That will be by like December timeframe, right? Is if we were to go down that road and it's even viable. I don't know if it's viable. That's the work that still has to be done. And candidly, we've tried to leave schools alone. But if you got into a concept of a school came online or a building in town came online that could not only fit your needs, but others, right? That's what's going to pass, right? It's not going to be, what we're trying to do is get out of every department for themselves sort of thing, because we all know how many departments had to come together to get a new police and fire station. So, right, it's going to be something similar to that is what we see is what we're going to come up with, whether it's a school, whether it's another building in town, or whether it's a new freestanding structure. That's when we're going to get the input from users, right? What would that space look like? You do space needs studies, et cetera.
Thank you. So what is the, I saw on the agenda that I think this was the item that it's on the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, and we were going to be asked to take the vote to take a position. What exactly is the agenda item on Tuesday, and what would this vote be tonight?
So I don't think you need to take a vote unless you have a really strong opinion on this. What we are doing on Tuesdays, we're providing an initial report of everything we've done in 4 months of being a committee. I know all the committee members, but we've actually been on Zoom the entire time. Right? We've formed like the meeting before everything shut down for the BOS. And we have a much broader report. It goes far beyond recreation. It goes far beyond South Union. What our ask is, and what we voted on unanimously to date, is to request they get an appraisal, right? The appraisal could come back and show us something that the BOS says it's not worth it, right? So we're just continuing the due diligence process. What I would like to be able to say is I kind of want to get a sense of, like, if anyone on this, and I know you don't have a full committee, but like if anyone here thinks this is an awful idea and we need to stop pursuing it, like I'd like to know that sooner rather than later. Obviously, these other comments, which I don't want to call small, but like I call manageable, like keep them coming. Like it can be stream of conscience, like you're just like thinking one night and like just shoot Tim and myself an email. Because what we're going to do, and I view our committee's responsibility, is to say, recreation had these 10 comments. This is how we satisfy 8 out of the 10. Youth and family had these 10 comments. Historical maybe has these 3 comments. And oh yeah, by the way, we had 10 other members of the community contact us with other things that no one brought up. Mm-hmm. And then that should inform them to make an educated view on whether this is something they continue to move forward. Because as capital, we're kind of like, we've done what we need to do. We think it's worthy of a conversation, but now we kind of have to turn the keys over to BOS to make some decisions. So really, so what sense of the meeting is the request for tonight, especially if there's negative items that we need to be aware of.
And what I mentioned to Jason, what I was thinking I could do is kind of put together just a memo of everything that we talked about and just submit it to him, just so that the committee has it on their record of, our concerns and what we would, like we just said, would potentially need to make a temporary space work. So I'm willing to put that together, send it to all you guys to sign off on, and then we can send it over to Jason to have in his back pocket.
Yeah, can I just make one more comment that's not so much a concern, but a pro, is that even though I live minutes from the rec center, so it's really, really convenient for me, I know in terms of location within the town, it's not so convenient for the north side. And so, that's a pro for finding a location that might be more central to the entire community.
Yep.
It'd be nice if we had air conditioning too.
Oh, yeah.
That should be able to be fixed. All right, no, Tim, that memo will be great. I assume we're going to have further conversations.
Yep.
I think probably our committee should regroup if BOS is going to continue the conversation, which we'll know.
Yeah.
We should know sense of where they're going on Tuesday.
Yeah, and thank you for always keeping me in the loop with that stuff when it comes to rec. So I don't mind going to
Okay.
meetings at all, anytime.
Thanks,
All right.
Jason.
Thanks
All
for your
right.
time.
Have a good
Thanks.
one.
Good to see you.
All right, thank you.
All right. So then let's see, we go back to our agenda. We've got field permit applications. Do we want to talk through those first? And Tim had sent around some documents on there.
Yeah, so so those permits haven't been updated since 2016, I believe. Led to a few issues here and there with some user groups, especially when it came to confusion with pricing. So I just took some downtime when I could in between everything going on to try to update them, bring them up to speed, add a few things in, especially when it comes to the COVID, kind of the waiver piece of it of, the plan that's required. I have a feeling that's going to be sticking around for a little while, at least, the next season, if not two. And I just wanted your feedback on it. The biggest change that was on there was splitting out the 9/11 permit. That was like 12 or 15 pages of a document, a very long, very, very long, bylaws and definitions and things of that nature. So I kind of combed through that to bring it up to what was, current and what was just the wording to make it, kind of apply to the times right now of what we need from people. And then again, sectioned out the actual application so that when people are handing in everything, I'm not getting, packets of permits. These will be online, obviously, and within each of them will be hyperlinks shooting you back and forth. So it will be very accessible and connected via the wonders of technology. And so just trying to bring it up to speed, just trying to improve it best we can, make things, as we always do, a little more easier for everybody else. So I was just hoping you guys could look through it. And if you had any suggestions, there is one thing that I noticed I didn't put in, and that's the light usage at Choate.
That's the only thing that I had on my list was I didn't see the light fees and policy.
Yeah, there was they had fees and policies. All you guys maybe have voted on it already for Mooney and Neary and everything like that. So that was a little strange to see that, but it dawned on me when I took those out that I didn't leave it in for Choate. So I do know I need to just make that one edit. But for the most part, everything else is the same. It's just, again, updated pricing and kind of email addresses and where to send things, deadlines, things of that nature. I did shrink the deadlines. Some of the seasons we're asking up to 2 months in advance. And it's very clear, especially now, that people really don't know their rosters or anything like that until much sooner. So I brought it down to about a month prior, which gives us more than ample time to process things. So.
I had some specific questions, not necessarily to the application form, but the policies. So should I hold that, or are we kind of talking about everything right now?
Let's talk about everything.
So we had, really right before, I think, the transition and everything last year, we had taken a lot of time, I think, looking at 9/11, and we even worked with the sports organizations on that. So my first question is, because to be honest with you, I couldn't recall if you received those updates and if the 9/11 policy is reflective of those. And the reason I ask is one line stood out to me that I was like, I thought we might have changed that, where it said scheduling will be done on a first come, first served basis according to the priority list.
So I'll cut you off there. So if that's something you changed, then no, I have not. I have not received your updated ones because that's the one we've been operating off of.
So Jen and Don, I'm just trying to remember where we left off on that.
Yeah, so we had drafted all of that with the previous director, and we had even voted it through, but it never got onto the site. Because I was looking to see, so I think the general sentiment, Tim, was that there was some like strict adherence to first come, first serve, and we got into a pickle where our fields are rented out to everyone but anyone local. And it caused like a lot of anxiety that we rented out all of our fields to everyone else and nobody local was allowed to use them. So I was looking to see where that was, because I know we had kind of adjusted the priority, saying that like for as much as we were like on our own fields, we can prioritize in-town youth sports and adult leagues. But I know on 9/11 there were restrictions as to how much we're allowed to prioritize.
It's like 25%, right? Non-resident.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we had input even from like I forget if it was soccer saying I think they wanted Saturday and not Sunday. Like there was some stuff like that we had talked through with them.
And like, and soccer and Lax had kind of agreed, like it wouldn't be, well, we got in for, I thought I'm remembering, as long as things got in by the deadlines, then we would take some of those.
She was running it, I think, first come, first serve, and we were getting a situation where the town folks are getting beat by some random regional group that happened to put their thing in on the first day that the window opened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'd suggest, now the other policy I think we started and we realized there were so many changes needed. I don't recall getting very far in that process before changes started to kind of start taking place. So I'd like to suggest we take the time to find I didn't have time, unfortunately, today to go back and find what we memorialized for 9/11, but knowing we put so much time into it, as did those youth groups, I think we owe it to them and us to go back and find that and then just kind of do a comparative to what you have.
That's fine. Yeah.
So, but does it, just to be fair, the forms that are out there still have people's email addresses that no longer work at Recreation. So like, I think even just getting these cleaned up version ones up there and out there is a step forward. And then we could also come back and see what else we want to further change and edit, if that makes sense to the rest of the commission.
So you can do that. But honestly too, what's one more season with the old ones?
Yeah.
So, if we just, I appreciate that, because trust me, I want to get rid of the ones that are up there now. But, I'd rather I'd just rather take one down, put one up and be done with it. So I'm happy. Obviously, I've been doing it for a year to navigate, it's all the same players too. So it's not like we're going to get a whole, especially this year, a whole host of new ones. So I think if we could, maybe take the month and take some time and get it right, and then we can put it out.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, we can find the minutes too, right? Because those were meetings that the organization showed up to. So between that and what we voted on, we should be able to do that in a month.
We can dig in and find the other one. Would you be able to share these as like Word docs instead, Tim? Because then we could do track changes and make it a lot easier. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. All right, but other than that, when it comes to applications, soccer's in. They put theirs in. Obviously, they don't have their rosters. Working with baseball, they're changing their format for the fall, so they're working on their schedule. Those two groups are already talking about some overlap on dates, just because of the thin field used for soccer. And those are one of our Sunday groups, one of our men's leagues, put in for their 5 weeks. But other than that, I haven't heard, and some lacrosse, some random lacrosse, Laxachusetts, things like that. But like I just said, same players, no one new. If anything, less than what we usually have, because I know I've already heard from a few leagues that they're not able to get the amount of players they need. So it'll be a quieter. We'll still be taking in a good amount. That'll help that account, but it'll be a quieter fall when it comes to that.
Okay.
Anything else on those?
Yep.
All right. Can we jump to programming with Alex just so we can
Yep.
let her go so she doesn't sit through everything else? Alex, I know you're there.
Oh yeah, no, I'm here. So yeah, so
She's
Tim
sitting very still. She's not moving at all.
and I, life is tough these days. So yeah, Tim and I have been talking. We kind of were waiting for the go ahead from the, well, not really the go ahead, but the information of how school's going to be running in the fall. So kind of what we were thinking is we would start right away with K through 5 as soon as they go back on the 22nd, and do some after school programs Tuesday through Friday. I think we discussed that we would only allow the students who are in school that day to attend. Obviously, if they're remote, they can't attend that day. So there will be plenty of classes, you know, some in person, some on Zoom, pretty much the same vendors we've always used, give or take with ones that aren't comfortable. And we would just run them all outdoors if they're in person, or via Zoom for, you know, like a chess class or a STEM class. Those would be online. And, you know, we've been talking about ways that, you know, whether we need to get porta potties for outside and things like that, so that there's no, you know, children going back into the schools after school, depending on, you know, what the cleaning protocols are. Again, we don't know that, but we're just gonna assume we're not allowed in, and we're not allowed in after 3 o'clock for, you know, those schools. So, you know, Tim's been talking about grabbing some porta potties for each school, and just, you know, if the weather is bad, just canceling it, adding a class on at the end, or making a longer class at the end of the session. And our main goal is to run 2 sessions starting on the 25th of September, or sorry, the 22nd of September, and then finishing right before Thanksgiving. So 2 separate sessions. Hopefully the weather holds out through that time. And then, you know, kind of reconvene for winter, depending on what school looks like and what the virus looks like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we kind of got the sense, it's not official yet, but I think it's a common sense that I don't think they're going to want us inside running around with the kids. So pretty much everything's going to be, like Alex just said, 100% outside. And then we were talking about it today. We're pretty much going to any proposal we get from one of our contractors, we're just going to slam it against the state guidelines, and because most likely it'll be a sport or something like that. So we'll address the masks. We'll address, you know, how many kids. Alex, I think you said it was going to be smaller groups for most of them.
Yeah, most of them are only comfortable with a max of 8 kids, between 4 and 8. So I think it'll definitely be smaller groups. A lot of the vendors have said that their coaches are college age kids who aren't going back. So they have quite a few extra coaches. So if we wanted to run 2 soccer programs at Finn on Monday, they'd be able to separate them with 2 separate coaches, type of thing.
But just to, I know you're just giving an example, but we're not doing Monday, right? Because that's obviously.
No, sorry.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah, like, okay, Tuesday.
Sorry, I know you're just giving an example. I just wanted to make sure.
I'm so used to them doing them on Mondays. Yeah, no, nothing on Monday. Just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Tim, something that was brought up after Tim and I chatted this morning was, I'm not sure what we would want to do for online classes. I don't know if you'd want to offer it to anyone or continue with just kids that are at school that day. That's kind of something we can throw around and figure that out. But if it's in person, or if it's at the vendor's facility, we've been talking with like Chestnut Hill and Martial Arts, it would have to be children that are at school that day.
We're kind of doing this in good faith too with the schools, because I know technically we don't need their permission per se, but we want their blessing on this. So we want to make sure, you know, we're keeping their facility as safe as we can as well. So that's kind of the main, you know, crux of this whole thing that we're trying to do. Not ideal, but, you know, I think we can, just from talking to Alex today, it sounds like we're going to put a pretty good foot forward. And I know some of the schools, some like Neary with the small gyms, they may not have the opportunity for much of the phys ed piece of it. And we don't really know what phys ed's going to look like. So hopefully, you know, we'll get some good feedback and parents will take advantage of this.
Yeah.
So
And so would you just kick off programs at the other schools as they're open? Well, I guess the middle schools, according to their, I don't know if I just got a weird sound on the Zoom, but you would just do the same, starting the same at Trotter, excuse me, I was having a mind blank, when they start.
So I think what we were thinking is we would start right away on the 22nd for Finn, Woodward, Neary. We would probably not run anything at Trotter until the second session. We don't normally have a lot of Trotter kids. When we did have them in the past, they would join the Neary kids, but again, we don't want to now combine two schools. So, I mean, we can try to offer it, but normally we would run 5-week programs. We just don't have that time. Again, we're trying to cram in 2 full sessions before Thanksgiving comes because, we don't know what school will look like or the weather will look like. So they're actually going to be 4-week sessions and, they're going to be back to back. There's not going to be a week in between. So I think, come October, when we run our second session, we can, of course, offer something for Trotter, but I don't think it's worth starting them a week late and then running an extra. I think it would just get too confusing.
it's probably the same with we were talking to on the vendor side of it too. We'd rather be consistent with your guys are in town this day for these 4 weeks, not kind of jumping and staggering. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
then Alex, can you give an update on BEST?
Yeah, so right now we're running a BEST soccer program, a half day, pre-K, and full day. Right now, I think for half day we have 60 kids signed up.
Wow.
Pre-K we have, maybe upwards of 10, 15. And half day we have 13. And I've heard from the vendors that it's going very well. There were some kids, that did drop out due to being uncomfortable, but for the most part, everyone showed up. They have plenty of coaches. I guess parents were asking for another week, so we added another week, the first week of September, to kind of get them through that extra time before school starts.
That's awesome.
And we already got a small amount of registrations flowing in for that, so that'll probably be another good one.
Good.
Yeah, program wise, I think that's pretty much it. So we're going to haul. I don't know if we're going to have, realistically, if we're going to have the time. I know we talked about this last time, to put together a brochure for online. If anything, we'll just utilize Constant Contact and, our listservs and our, the blog and things like that. But we should be able to, get the word out and we'll get it all up online very, very quickly. But we just want to make sure we have a full set agenda before we release it. So our goal was to have everything planned out by the end of this month. So 2 weeks from tomorrow is our goal, to have it all buttoned up and good to go. That would give us a week, I think, 2 weeks or before the first session would start. So enough to get the word out, open registration, and fingers crossed it all works out.
Thanks. I know it must be a real challenge to be navigating all of this. And if you post on Southborough Parents Share and Care, it's safe to say it's going to be seen. The traffic on that place that site is insane. I can't keep up.
All right. Any other questions for Alex before she goes and enjoys her evening?
No, thanks, Alex.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Bye.
All right.
Is there anyone in the waiting room?
Nope.
Okay. I just keep hearing a weird beep.
Nope. Anybody hear from either Dave?
Nope.
No. Do we know if Candela reached out to date to get reappointed?
I don't. I think he said he emailed in, but I'm not positive. So
He's out of town. I did get it. I did hear back. He's out of town.
Okay. All right. I'll just do some general updates. I think 1 or 2 things. So that pretty much summed up our general update. We just been monitoring, as I'm sure the three of you have, the school schedule of what's going to be expected. So with that being announced last night, we're moving on that heavy. Worked a lot on it today. So that was good. So happy to just be out with the kids, hopefully, and back in light. We had our movie night the other night. Went really, really well. Had about 35 cars, so we probably averaged 4 to 5 people in a car. So it was a good crowd. Really appreciative of the company to be so flexible and move that to that type of style. So we've had probably more cars pull up and ask what was going on. So I have a feeling our next one will be even more popular, which is great. Almonds was there with their ice cream truck. They did really well for themselves, it looked like. So all in all, it was a really good time. So
Awesome.
not next week, but the week after is our next one. So the 25th, we'll be doing that. And then we still own another license for one other movie that we canceled because of the rain last week. So we are looking at maybe doing another one before school starts now that it's pushed out into the middle of September. So maybe another treat, first or second week of September to go with that. But we're just keeping busy on that piece. Let's see what else.
I'm just curious. Can I just ask on the movie night? I was just more curious because I think you said when I read it was like a 40 car max. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious, were people like lined up at 7 o'clock or how did that all?
People are lined up at 6:30. They started
wow.
lining up. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, we did that. And then so Neary has 2 double rows. So if you're looking at the front door, 2 double rows, and then the back row against the Petrie.
Mm-hmm.
Pickup trucks were in the back, SUVs were in the middle, and then just sedans were in the front, just to kind of mimic it of not getting in people's way. So it was good. Everyone backed up, opened their trunks. All the kids were sitting in the trunks. So it was really cool, especially with the radio transmitter. It was neat.
That's really cool.
Definitely neat.
That's interesting. I was just thinking, you mentioned the trunks. It reminds me of, I spent almost 4 years living in Switzerland, and there's not a lot of American things that are going on in Switzerland. But all the Americans wanted to do trick-or-treating, which is just not a thing over there. And the workaround was everybody drove to the school, parked in the parking lot, and the kids went from trunk to trunk
Mm-hmm.
it was trunk or treating, I think they called it.
Yeah.
And you just walk through the parking lot to collect your treats that way.
Might be doing that.
I was thinking it might,
one of the
might
things
be,
we're talking about.
yeah, might be something to do because there's no way I don't see people necessarily walking up to a whole bunch of houses this year.
Nope. Project wise, I know I'm missing a bajillion things of department update. I don't know why. I just can't think of it because I feel like we've been slammed. Project wise, so townhouse is officially done. I received the final report from the inspection today, passed with flying colors. So townhouse playground is officially done. So that's off. It's getting used a lot actually, which is really cool during the day. And on the weekends, I brought my daughter down there, and it was being used 2 weekends ago. So that's all done. DePetrie is being cut now. Looks amazing. The grass, everything took. It's firm. It's everything. So it's wonderful. So
it is awesome.
Yeah.
We are on track. It looks like probably that week we do wrap. So the 22nd is probably when we're going to take the fence down. So really good. DPW has been wonderful helping out with the cutting on that. Chris is doing it himself. So that's just doing really well. Fayetteville, if you've gone by, you might have noticed there's stakes in the ground.
One quick question.
Yeah.
So when you say you're going to take the fence down, is that for usage?
Yeah.
And I forget our past discussions. It doesn't have to rest this season?
No, because we did sod instead, because we switched over to sod instead of seed.
Okay.
So it'll be good to go.
Okay,
So
cool.
just Fayetteville, there's stakes in the ground. If you've seen it, we're getting ready to do the basketball court finally to get that in. Last time I talked to Karen, we're looking mid-September again. It all depends on another project the town has going on. They're going to utilize it when utilize the paving company when they're in town doing another job. So as long as that lines up, it's looking like September. DPW will get in there early, lay the base, and then they'll come in and pave it down. We're waiting on the actual quote permit because we're hoping that if we have extra in that article that we can spare, we're also quoting out with the company to go around the field to improve that walking path to make it ADA.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully, being a state bid, company, we'll get a good price, and we can go to CPC and ask for that amendment to get that taken care of. So that'll be, two birds, one stone to get
really
that going.
cool.
Down there staking it, everyone was super pumped when we were. I was talking to Karen. She went down with Chris to do it, and everyone was so thrilled we were actually doing it. So it'll be good.
Yeah, on that one there, so I know we had gotten a lot of feedback when that playground was being built about the local neighbors wanting to know what we were doing and the timelines. So it might also be good, even if it's just rough timelines, to share something on Facebook or announce what you're doing and tell them roughly how long we'll be working there.
Yep.
Because I know, the Fayetteville playground went on longer than it should have, and local neighbors were not happy about it. So
Yeah, it's easy. So I know it was kind of hidden in our phases of facility releases that there was construction about to go on, but yeah, I think it deserves its own thing.
People were that excited about the townhouse playground. I can only imagine how this is going to go over.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Good. All positive stuff. So.
Yep.
So one of the big program updates is summer nights. So we're canceling summer nights, as you all know, but we can say it publicly now, based off of really the public safety officials looking at state data, state trends, take into account realistically what would happen when it came to crowds, potentially when it came to crowds gathering, even if it was just for fireworks. We're still talking hundreds, if not thousands. Kind of around that area, especially now that the state even went down to only 50 being to congregate. So it just wouldn't have made sense. Best news is that Atlas gets it, so they're going to hold our credit for another year.
Good.
So we are not losing that money. So we are still good to go for 2021, fingers crossed. We are not making an official decision on Heritage Day, but Denise is thinking of alternatives just to be safe. She's looking at a lot of other towns are doing kind of smaller versions. I think our issue now is the max congregation size of getting people together. So, like we always have, we're going to keep an eye on the data and the trends, and we're going to see, what we can pull off safely. So we're actively looking forward ahead to that, because actually people are reaching out about it. Vendors are reaching out about it because now's the time that Denise usually sends stuff out. So we're just trying to figure that out. Same with the Gobble Wobble, same with the Halloween party. They released today they released updated guidelines for sports, and it actually included races in it this time. It didn't ban them, just gave some guidelines on it about staggered start times and things like that. As it stands now, with what they put forward, we wouldn't be able to do it, but that gives me hope that they will continue to look at that, as that's obviously a big event for us. The Friends are meeting very regularly, which is great. They're doing a lot on their end, just kind of getting up to speed, getting back in the game with their new board. They're discussing it already. They're prepared to cancel it. They've kind of accepted it that's a possibility. And honestly, it's money saved type thing. They're healthy right now with their accounts, so they're going to assist us where they can. They helped us with the movie night, so it was great to see them on site helping us out, getting their face out in support. So that was wonderful. So they're on their end. My point is, on their end, they're also looking at their events to make the best decisions as soon as possible, being Halloween and being the Wobble.
have they considered taking the Wobble Gobble virtual? Just knowing that a lot of races are doing that. It's also a big fundraiser, and I know we've given a lot of money to the food pantry recently and to other local ways to give back to the community. That just thinking if you're selling them a bib they can print out and do it on their own and share back their pictures, but then also still be looking to raise funds for something in town.
Yeah, I don't know if they I can't answer that if they thought of that or not. So I will pass that on to Jolene, as she's our new president, and I'll see. I know they were meeting soon,
Okay.
I think within the next week or so. So I'm sure that that's a great thing to bring up.
Yeah, I feel like our community would still participate that way. And then there's still, like, it was always a family event. So
Yep.
like they could still do it virtually with their family. So.
Let's write it down. Cool. All right. All right. Where was I? Projects? Is that what I was talking about?
Lights,
Lights,
baseball lights.
camera, action. Yeah, okay, so Fayetteville basketball court, the Petrie, great. So lights, so the package is done. We're done. We got everything in. It's substantial. It's quite the package. We crossed our T's twice and dotted our I's 14 times. Yeah, so we're confident what we have. We're emailing, planning pretty much every day, just double checking on a lot of things. We're doing things that normally we probably wouldn't. So for instance, you might have saw it on Facebook, we had Life Flight do a test run just
Yeah,
to
that was
ensure.
cool.
So that was really cool. They called 20 minutes before, like, hey, we're landing in your field. We're like, oh, okay, we'll be there. So fire department pulled through on that one. They got a kick out of it too. A lot of kids on the playground thought it was the best thing too. But quote unquote, they said they could land an aircraft carrier worth of helicopters on that field. So that gave us confidence that we are fine. I am supposed to receive a letter by tomorrow stating that as well from UMass Air One to confirm we're good. So we'll include that in our package. Working on making sure the abutters list that we get is correct, and then double checking it as well just to make sure it's correct. So we'll get all that out once we get the proper paperwork. Reached out to conservation just to make sure that we're not triggering anything on their end. We received word we're not. We're going to get that in writing, so we'll keep that in our package. Because we had to do a major site, I'm just giving you examples of kind of how far we're going on this.
Yeah.
Because we're triggered a major site plan, part of that, and you can tell it's kind of more towards major construction. There has to be a beautification aspect to your project to kind of hide the construction that you did, especially on the street for the neighbors. So I talked to baseball about that. I have a meeting next week with them. We're going to go over what they can do. They volunteered to do it. When it comes to kind of doing some plantings around where the porta potty is or the snack shack is, kind of, making it nice for the neighbors across. So we are being as proactive as possible right now. Very confident in what we're putting through. The plans are extremely detailed without being confusing, if that makes sense. And I think it'll be good. I have a good feeling about it. From what I hear, they've never approved something in the first night, so I'm not gonna, get my hopes that they will, but hopefully we can break that streak and get things rolling. I do think with lighting, with that package, we might have, so we're talking September 14th is our date. And so we're talking outside of that, if approved that night, ideal situation. We're talking 11 weeks from there. So we're probably gonna lose the construction season in the fall. So it's looking like this will be a spring project, but honestly, if we're approved and we're going to build it, that's fine. I'll do it in the spring. Totally cool with that.
And that's like awesome. And it sounds like a ton of work. Is baseball up to speed on everything that's been happening?
Yeah. So they've, weekly, I've talked to them pretty much, either just on my own accord, if something happened, I let them know. If not, they're reaching out to me. Part of the meeting with next week, I asked them for it. I'm actually just going to go through the plans with them just so that they're up to speed. So come the meeting, they know exactly what we're talking about, so they can be educated. As I'm sure they're going to be there along with a lot of their members of their boards and parents and things like that. But yeah, they're probably as up to speed as I am with this whole project. So that's good. So that is due next Thursday officially. We should have everything in before that. From talking to Art, he's got to get hard copies of everything, which it's going to be a couple. It seems like probably at least over 100 copies. So he's working on that, and we're feeling good. I just want that submitted so we can.
I know. But it's really exciting to see these things coming together. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's a good feeling. I was super bummed last month when we couldn't pull that off, but like we said, we wanted to make sure it was done right and not just thrown together. So The other piece of it too, the skate park was removed yesterday. that is done.
Ah,
So
every
officially
time we
done.
drive by, my daughter would point out, why is that still there? And there's kids in there.
So it's a very weird site down there. It's a very big court. So, either we start now or maybe when we got a little cash flow, start looking at that and what we can do with that. But DPW took care of that for us yesterday. So massive thanks, like I do every single day when I'm working, of everything they're doing. But that's off the list. So that's great. So I'm happy with that.
Is anything,
know.
I've got one question. I mean, this has kind of been hanging out there forever. We were waiting for, I can't even remember who was reviewing it, but at Lundblad, before we could do any work there,
Yeah.
there had to be I can't think of the agency.
EPA.
EPA, thank
Right.
you.
Yeah. That's still where it's at. I haven't really touched that, if I'm being honest.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been a little busy.
Yeah, well, everything else has been kind of shovel ready, if not
Yeah.
close to it. So we're kind of ticking those off.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, I'm a little worried about that just because when we were digging at DePetrie, we were ripping up trash from the ground. So I think it's going to be an interesting study once we can get that going. But my guess, honestly, probably be spring if we can get these things done. What we have on the table now done. That will be next, because really I think that's the only thing that's at least left since I've gotten here that you guys gave me until I start coming up with new things to do. So.
Oh, we've got a big one waiting for you.
What else? I'm just thinking facility wise, the turf was tested for impact, concussion testing. We had that done with Brad, so that's done, passed, so we're fine with that. Have a contact to get the lines done for the fall to correct them for painting. Don, it was an 11, right? 11v11 we wanted on it, just to confirm.
So if we're talking 9/11, it's already an 11v11. You want to add a 9v9.
See, that's why I asked. So, if I'm gonna veer off, how's it going with Summer League, Don?
So far, so
Everything fine?
good. I mean, it's the launch. It's all, you've seen the list of protocols, obviously. So it's interesting. The kids are fine. The boys are all good. The hardest part of the whole thing is just keeping them 6 feet apart while they're on the bench. And because that's just not their thing. They all just generally congregate. So, and it's harder because there's such demand that the roster is something like 22 kids. And so you don't always get 100% attendance, but the first couple games, especially the home games, I had like 8 or 9 boys on the bench, which is like, and the bench isn't big enough. Like there needs to be like, and it's one contiguous bench. It really, if it was 3 different benches, then I could actually move them. So really the interesting thing is if we could get, benches that you could actually physically separate, that would make it easier. But most games, when things get going, you're only going to have 4 or 5 kids sitting on the sideline. And so you can sort of keep an eye on them. So I have my co-coach is Mrs. Folsom. She's the tech ed teacher at Trottier. So she's really good she handles all of the 6 feet COVID monitoring, and I just handle making sure we've got enough kids out there and they're all getting their turn. So
There you go.
and then I've been locking up the fences. Ben had locking up the nets. Ben had a game the other day. He took care of it. It's interesting because there's vultures. Like one of those games, there were people
Up the
hanging
trees.
out.
Yeah.
And well, no, I mean people wanted to use the field.
Oh, okay.
So they were hanging out in the parking lot, and so I have the boys go grab the other net, pull it all the way back, turn it around, and then lock it up. And I think they were just waiting to see if they were going to get the field. Yeah.
Yeah.
So summer league soccer? Don?
Yeah. So it's
Algonquin.
It's the high school. So there's like a informal group of schools that run sort of a mass prep or something like that. So basically Algonquin has 2 teams, varsity and then the JV. So the upcoming freshmen so my son plays or is playing and a bunch of other upcoming freshmen, and they play other high school teams. But it's not high school coaches and stuff. So that's why I'm doing it, because it has it's not sanctioned from that perspective. So it's just a summer league, kids just getting out there to play. We're following sort of the protocols and the guidelines, but it's not considered like an official, tryout or things like that.
Yeah. Gotcha. I hadn't heard about that. That's cool.
Yeah, so it's been good practice for if we get to play town. I'm well versed on how to sanitize the soccer ball, and got more hand sanitizer than I know what to do with, and I wear my mask and do my thing, and so but it's not bad. I mean, we don't do the no handshakes after. You don't really talk to the other team at all. The refs we had have been pretty good. There's the hardest thing, I think, and we haven't had a problem is that they want the ratio, so one kid to one parent. So they don't want any more people on the sidelines from a parental perspective than they do kids, really. So
Yeah.
And so far, knock on wood, it's been okay. But that's something to kind of keep an eye on, because again, you just want to keep the number of people there at a minimum.
Yeah, I think that was part of the updated guidelines today. If it's under 18, it's only one parent allowed.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's so much so that they're even on the sideline. So it wouldn't be an issue for town, but they don't want more than 25 people on either bench area, right? And so we have a standing sort of orders that and they don't have more than 24 kids on the roster. If it turns out that everybody showed up, and it's not possible because we got kids who are vacation or injured or whatever, one of the coaches would have to move so that we could keep it to 25.
Interesting.
It'll probably change next week though, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so far so good. It's gone. It's and honestly, we were just in I was just down in Blackstone Valley. I don't even know what town we were, and it was some crappy, grass field. So having the turf has been fantastic for the guys, because they'll end up playing more outside of Southborough. They'll end up playing more on turf than they get to play than anything else. All the other high schools have turf.
Cool. Good. I'm glad that worked out. Definitely glad that worked out. That's you kind of touched on it. It's one of the things that we don't have to talk about now, but just in the future that I think we need to address the locks down there with entry into the field. I'm kind of getting a history lesson from a few people. There used to be gates, there used to be padlocks just on actual entrances. Now it's just a little clip. So, our biggest struggle always is keeping people off. So been kind of talking to Jim Hegarty and going over kind of what has been there and what we can put there. So maybe in the fall, we talk about kind of reworking the lock system and only making sure the players of who's actually using the field has access to it, just to kind of cut down. I'm just worried about the people dragging the goals. They're going to cut the turf or something like that. So hopefully we can address that in a future meeting. Just trying to bring it up. Okay, yeah, that's all I had. So lighting is good to go, and facilities are doing well. Yeah, that's what I got.
It's a lot.
All right.
As always. That's a good thing though, keeping us busy. It's good to be in the office. Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
So I guess next step, what I'll do tomorrow, I'll kind of I was taking notes as we were talking to Jason, so I'll put together a little memo. If we can all look at it, I'll send it off. If we can look at it, I'll kind of do a little intro for the Daves, so they can understand what we're doing. And then make the corrections by Monday, because selectmen are talking about it on Tuesday. I'm going to plan on attending that one virtually. So if we can get all buttoned up by Monday, I'll send it off to Jason and CC selectmen and stuff like that on it, if that works for you guys. And
honestly, like getting an appraisal, like they should regularly be doing appraisals of town property. So I don't think that's really a concern. And as long as we can, and they're running if he's going to run the process like he did the public safety building, then it'll be collaborative and there'll be plenty of time to get input and information out there. So seems like they're doing all the right things.
If anything, I think the bigger issue is youth and family, just because of HIPAA and everything that comes with moving that crew. So it'll be interesting. Yep. Definitely interesting. All right, did we miss anything, Jen?
No, just, so you said the 14th, we're on the planning board agenda,
That's a Monday, right?
Monday, yep.
Yep, that's us.
So I'll just post it just in case. So, I mean, when we all dial in anyways, we can't see or talk to each other, but in case, I'll post
Yeah.
it so that we can talk if we needed.
Just do
Um,
it, yeah.
Yep. And then, so then when do we want our next meeting to be?
I mean, just given the circumstances with everything changing so fast, I mean, I know this meeting was a little later in the month, but I mean, I think we definitely want to meet before the 22nd. Just just to understand if things have changed, what does that mean? You know, what's going on? 'Cause, you know, we get a lot of questions from parents, obviously, so.
So that week of the 14th, like that's when school starts. So I'm assuming we were all a little bit focused on school. Do we want to do the week before?
Yeah,
Monday?
I'll say week before, because we can touch base on the planning board meeting.
Yeah.
And then we'll definitely know what's going on for sessions for RAP.
So look, Monday is a holiday, but Tuesday the 8th we could probably do.
That's fine.
Yep.
Works for me. Yep.
All right, so I'll just make sure we can get the room, and as long as we can, I'll book it.
so funny how easy it is to find a meeting night now because we got nothing else going on.
for us, but the meeting rooms, let me tell you, it's
Yeah.
like hot commodity. Cool. Alrighty. Then I guess I'll make a motion to end the meeting at 7:14.
Second,
All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
do we have to, wait, do we have to do like a vote?
Jumon agrees.
Well,
Hanson, yes.
bye, thanks, Tim, as always.
Yep.
Thank you,
Don,
Tim.
real quick,
Good week.
did you get that email with the financials done?
I did. Looks good.
Okay, just making sure.
Yep. Excellent.
All
Thank you.
right,
Have a good night,
guys.
you
Thanks.
Good to see you.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.